But what I will say, and I was talking to Mr. Lavenier this morning, if there's one thing in math, in high school math, and then again into college math, that you should really, really work at, it's factoring. Because you're going to see factoring in Algebra 1. You're going to see factoring in Algebra 2. You're going to see factoring in geometry. I teach pre-calc. You're going to see a lot of factoring in pre-calc. You're going to see factoring if you take college algebra, liberal arts. There's factoring in calculus. So factoring is one of the main algebra concepts that will travel with you through all of your math classes. So if some of you are just saying here like, I am so bad at factoring, we can get better at it. If you just practice and practice and practice, I can give you guys a million practice problems. I can give you video tutorials to look at. I can sit with you and go over some, but factoring is one of those things that we really need to get a handle on. So, because you're going to keep seeing it in everything that we do in math. I always say factoring is that F word that never goes away. We love it, right? Some of you are going to say, I hate factoring. I want you to get to say, oh, I like factoring. It's like a puzzle. There's all kinds of different ways to factor, and we just need to try to be good at it. As far as your test goes, okay, I was going to give your quizzes back today and go over them, but Mr. Lav still has some makeups that he needs to do, so we'll do that on Monday. I'll give them back to you guys, and you can ask questions, we can review it. But your test is going to be over what we did on the quiz, which most of you guys did pretty well on, and then what we're doing with 7.1 and 7.3. The review is posted. I'm going to have you guys start working on it today after I go over these few problems. I want you guys to look at it and say, okay, I know how to do this. I'm not so sure about that. So ask me the ones that you're not so sure of. Monday in class, you can ask me, we'll go over it. Tuesday in class, we'll go over it. What I'm going to try to do is work out all of the problems on a video this weekend so I don't have to do it in class, so I don't rush through it. I just want to make sure you guys understand everything. So let's look at these few problems. I want to look at these. Are we multiplying, dividing, or just simplifying in a question like this? Number 5. We're just what? Simplifying, right? There's not another fraction that we're multiplying with or dividing by. This is a rational expression. Again, guys, remember, you cannot just go, oh, 18 and 6 are both divisible by 3, so I'm just going to go ahead and do that. You're not allowed to do that. Remember that this numerator and this denominator are, all of those terms are attached to each other because they have plus and minus signs in between. If it was just multiplication, you'd be good to go. But since there's a plus or minus sign in between each term, they are stuck together. So we have to factor. Let's look at the numerator. What can I multiply to give me a negative 18, but add to give me a negative 3? 6 and 3. What kind of 6 and what kind of 3? I need a negative 6 and a positive 3. Now, some of us, you guys are really good at getting the factors, but then the signs get messy. So if you think about it, just check for a second. If I multiply negative 6 and positive 3, I do get negative 18. And if I add negative 6 plus 3, I do get negative 3. So just take a second to just check to make sure when you multiply, you get the last number. When you add, you get the middle one. So now this is gone. We've already factored it. So now let's look at the bottom. What are the factors of positive 6 that are going to give me a 6 when I multiply, but a negative 7 when I add? Negative 6, negative 1. Perfect. Now watch. Check it real quick just to make sure. What's a negative 1 times a negative 6? Positive 6. What's a negative 1 plus a negative 6? Negative 7. Good to go. Now that you have everything factored, if there is a binomial, or if there's anything in the numerator that is exactly the same as the denominator, we can cancel out. Do you guys see that? What can I cancel? X minus 6 and x minus 6. So your simplified rational is x plus 3 over x minus 1. If they ask you to state the restrictions, this didn't, but if they ask you to state the restrictions, what is the only number in the world that we cannot use for the denominator? 1. Why can't we use 1? What will the denominator become? 0. You take whatever is in the denominator and you set it not equal to 0. You say, okay, what can I not use? So I'm going to add 1 to both sides. So you say x cannot be 1. Here's your simplified expression. And you guys are going to work these problems out the same way every time. If you're multiplying, you do the same thing. You factor, 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 cancel out what they have in common. If you're dividing, you keep, change, flip, and then factor, 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 cancel out what they have in common. All right, so let's look at number 8. Number 8's a little different, so I wanted to do this one too. Remember, these are all the numerators joined together, the denominators joined together. So let's factor the numerator. Are there factors of positive 12 that'll multiply to give me a positive 12 but add to give me a negative 7? Now think about this. To get a positive number when you multiply, both factors have to be positive or both have to be what? Negative. And in this case, they're both going to be what? Negative, because this middle sign is negative, right? We can always think through this factoring thing. You don't have to just guess and hope that you get the signs right. So what are the factors of 12 that'll multiply to give me positive 12 but add to give me negative 7? 4 and 3. Perfect. And again, take a second to check. What's negative 4 times negative 3? Positive 12. What's negative 4 plus negative 3? Negative 7. So that is gone. And now I say, oh, I only have 2 terms here. This is always a tricky one.
It's a perfect cube.
This is a perfect cube. It's almost like difference of perfect squares, right? You're like, oh, there's 2 terms, there's a minus sign, but it's cubed. When we have the difference of perfect cubes, we have to identify what our A term is and what the B term is. Don't worry about the sign. You don't have to worry about that. What times what gives me x cubed? X. What times what gives me 27? 3. So now let's remember the perfect cube pattern. Since there's a minus sign here, it's x minus 3. And then on the inside, we square the A term. What's x squared? What sign comes next? Plus. Good. Then you multiply the A and the B, so 3x. And then anytime you square a number, you're going to get what kind of an answer? That number squared, and it's going to be positive, so it'll be plus 9. So this is all gone. And then we say, okay, is there anything in the top and the bottom that's exactly the same? Yes. X minus 3 and x minus 3. So what are we left with? Clean it up. Don't just leave it like that for me to just guess. And I have x squared plus 3x plus 9. Now, if it asked you to state the restrictions, you would have to set the denominator not equal to 0, right? Does this factor? Are there factors of 9 that multiply to give me 9 and add to give me 3? No. So what would we have to use? The quadratic formula. So in this case, what would your B be? Negative 3 plus or minus b squared, so 9, minus 4 times a is 1 times c is 9. No, it's not. B is not 9. B is 3. Sorry. Over 2 times a, which is 1. My brain's always going faster than my mouth. So I have negative 3 plus or minus, 3 minus 36 over 2. Say it again. Because it doesn't factor. Is it what, 9?
The top one is blue. Can it just be 3 and 3?
It is 9. It is 9. Hold on one second. I'll come back to you, Jeremiah. Hang on. This is 9 here because it's 3 squared, right? See, I had it right the first time. Golly. Is it Friday, guys? Okay, so let's keep going. What do you guys notice about this? Does anything jump out at anybody? It's going to be a negative. What happens when you have a negative underneath the radical? It's imaginary, right? So what this is telling you, since this is an imaginary, is there are no restrictions for this one. Any number you plug in is going to give you some sort of an answer. It's not going to make the denominator 0. So in this case, it's no restrictions. Now, the reason why we had to use the quadratic formula, what are the factors of 9 that could multiply to give you 9, but add to give you 3? We only have 3 and 3, which would give us 6, and we only have 1 and 9, which would give us 10. So that's why it doesn't factor. You have to use the quadratic formula. But if you ever came across one like that, I'm not saying there's going to be on the test or anything, but if you came across one like that and it didn't factor, use the quadratic formula. And then as soon as you get a negative underneath here, you can go, wait a second. There's no restrictions because this is an imaginary. It's not a real number, so then you don't have to worry about anything. All right, let's look at one more, and then I'll let you guys start your review. There's a lot going on in this problem. So I have my numerator, and I have my denominator. When you guys factor, no matter if you have 2 terms, 3 terms, 4 terms, 10 terms, whatever, what is the first thing you look for? A common what? Common factor, GCF. Is there a number that goes into both 32 and 50? No? 2, right? 2 goes in there, doesn't it? What's 32 divided by 2? 16. So I have 16 next to the 4th. Minus, what's 50 divided by 2? 25? Okay. All right, so this is gone. Now I look and I say, I feel like this could break down a little more. How many terms are there? 2. Is there a minus sign in the middle? Yes or no? Is 16 a perfect square? Is 25 a perfect square? Is x to the 4th a perfect square? What times what will give you 16? 4 and 4. What times what will give you x to the 4th? X squared. What times what will give you 25? 5 and 5. You can break that down a little more, guys. This is the same as 2 times what goes in the front of my parenthesis? 4x squared. What goes in the back of my parenthesis? 5. And what are the signs in the middle? If it's the difference of perfect squares, plus and minus. Good. So now that's gone. It's a hard problem. That's a big factoring problem. But you have now simplified the numerator. I'm going to write it over here. So I have 2 times 4x squared plus 5 and 4x squared minus 5. All right, now I look at the bottom and I say, wait a second, this one's a little weird. This one's different from the ones we've been doing. How many terms are there? There's 4. Is there a GCF? Can you take a number or letter out of all 4? No. So what do we do when there's 4 terms? You can make it 2 and 2. We can group it, right? Let's try and group it. See if that works. The first 2, and then the last 2. Let's see if there's a GCF in there that we can discover. What can I take out of 4x cubed and negative 12x squared?
4x squared.
I can take out of 4x squared. You guys agree? And I'd be left with x minus 3. Perfect. What can I take out of negative 5x and a positive 15? Negative. If it leads with a negative, take out that negative. So I have negative. When I divide this out, it becomes x minus 3. Do I now have 2 parentheses that are exactly the same? Yes. I found the GCF that was hidden in there. So I'm going to pull it out in front, write it 1 time. And then what happens with the leftovers? It gets its own parentheses. So 4x squared minus 5. So I'm going to write that over here. So I have x minus 3 and then 4x squared minus 5. That was a lot of factoring in one problem. Am I done? No. Do you see anything that is exactly the same in the numerator and the denominator? Yes, what is it? The 4x squared minus 5. So you're left with 2 times 4x squared plus 5 on top and x minus 3 on the bottom. Do you have any restrictions? X cannot be what number? Positive 3, because what happens when it is? The denominator becomes 0. Then your problem becomes undefined. Does that make sense? All right, so what I want you guys to do now, I want you to get with a partner. I'm asking you. I am asking you to talk to each other, but it has to be about math. Pull up the review. Go through it and say, okay, I know how to do this. I know how to condense and expand. I remember the change of base formula. I remember how to do this. I don't really remember how to do that. That sort of a thing. And then ask me questions, because you should have a majority of this review done when you come into class on Monday. If you don't have any of it done, you're going to be playing catch up and you're not going to be fully prepared for the test on Wednesday. You guys really need to practice and do it on your own, and then come in with questions on, hey, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to do that. Deal? All right.